She walked in with grace and a flawless smile, but within minutes the polished calm shattered. By the time the interview ended, millions would be questioning who truly lost control. They booked her for a simple morning chat. But what unfolded between Meghan Markle and Michael Strahan wasn't just a PR disaster. It became the most talked about moment in morning television history. The Good Morning America studio was humming with its usual pre-show energy. Makeup artists rushed between stations, production assistants whispered into headsets, and the scent of fresh coffee mingled with the faint buzz of tension that always preceded a live segment. Michael Strahan, the ever-composed host with years of media experience, sat calmly in the green room reviewing the morning's rundown. He had interviewed everyone from world leaders to award-winning actors, but today's guest had stirred a different kind of buzz. Meghan Markle, the former Duchess of Sussex, actress, humanitarian, and now headline maker, was here for a special live segment. Officially, it was supposed to be about her latest philanthropic initiative and a new wellness documentary. Unofficially, the producers knew this interview could veer into unpredictable terrain. Meghan had been in the headlines constantly, her Netflix specials, royal drama, and persistent rumors about her marriage. Still, Michael had no plans to ambush her. That wasn't his style. Meghan arrived early. She was poised, polite, dressed in an elegant ivory pantsuit that struck the perfect balance between royal decorum and Hollywood chic. She greeted the crew graciously, complimented the flowers on set, and even cracked a joke with one of the producers. But beneath the surface, behind the smile and effortless posture, there was a glint of something else, something unreadable. At precisely 8:17 a.m., the red light above camera 3 blinked on. The show was live. Michael flashed his signature smile. Good morning, America. We have a very special guest with us today. Meghan Markle is here to talk about her latest work, her new documentary, and of course, life beyond the spotlight. Meghan, welcome back to the show. Thank you, Michael. It's always a pleasure, she said smoothly, her voice calm, rehearsed, and unwavering. The first 5 minutes rolled on like clockwork. They talked about the wellness series, motherhood, community work, safe ground, and Meghan answered with polish and poise, sprinkling in buzzwords like authenticity, healing, and growth. But then Michael made a subtle pivot. So Meghan, he began gently, you've worn many hats, actress, activist, member of the royal family. But I'm curious, when you look back at your acting career, how do you see it now? Did it prepare you for the public scrutiny that came later? For a heartbeat, Meghan's face didn't change. Then her eyes narrowed just slightly. Well, I think it's reductive to focus on my acting when there's so much more to who I am now, Michael. Michael nodded. Of course. But don't you think those earlier roles shaped how people perceive you today? Meghan let out a short, clipped laugh. Perception is an interesting thing. People tend to believe what they're told, especially by the media. There was a subtle chill in her tone now. The control room picked up on it immediately. One of the producers whispered, uh-oh, or hey-oh, into her headset. Michael, still composed, leaned in. Fair point. Though I'd argue interviews like this are our way of letting people hear directly from you. Meghan's smile faltered for just a second. I suppose, if the questions are thoughtful. A quiet silence pulsed between them, just long enough for viewers at home to notice. But Michael wasn't new to tension. He pressed on, flipping to the next card. You know, there's been a lot of speculation about your relationship with the press. Some say it played a part in the breakdown between you and the royal family. Looking back, would you say that's fair? There it was, the line that cracked her smile. Meghan leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs deliberately. That's an oversimplification. I left because I wanted peace. Because I wanted my children to grow up in a space where their mother isn't dissected on national television. Ironically, here I am again. Michael raised an eyebrow. And yet you've chosen to be very public since then. Documentaries, podcasts, interviews like this one. Some might say you stepped out of one spotlight only to create another. The air in the studio thickened. Meghan responded with an icy smirk. Are you suggesting that speaking on my own terms is somehow equivalent to being hounded by tabloids? Not at all, Michael said calmly. Just pointing out that the transition wasn't exactly a retreat from attention. Now the camera zoomed in slightly. The tension had become part of the segment. But unlike tabloids, Meghan replied sharply, I get to choose the narrative. I think that's something you might not understand unless you've lived it. Michael remained unfazed. I'd argue that as someone who's worked in both journalism and professional sports, I understand the pressure of public perception better than most. The moment hung there, two professionals locked in a silent contest of control. Michael changed tack, keeping his tone even. Let me ask you this. Do you think your departure from royal duties had anything to do with your past, your upbringing, your Hollywood career? Did any of that clash with the expectations of the crown? Meghan didn't blink. If you're asking whether I was too American for the monarchy, the answer is yes, and I wear that like a badge of honor. A few audience members chuckled awkwardly. Michael smiled politely, but his eyes studied her closely. And has that cultural clash affected your current relationship? With Prince Harry, for example? Meghan's tone shifted again, now colder, sharper. My marriage is not a topic for public entertainment, Michael. I came here to discuss serious work, not indulge tabloid fantasies. No disrespect meant, Michael said. But people are curious. You two have been icons of change, and part of that story is how you support each other through it. Icons, Meghan repeated amused, or targets. There was no humor in her voice. The studio had gone unusually quiet, crew members frozen, waiting for the next shoe to drop. Michael kept his voice steady. I suppose it depends on who you ask. Some say you've reshaped public narratives. Others believe you've blurred the lines between privacy and publicity. And some, Meghan said flatly, simply like to hear themselves talk. Boom! A jolt ran through the control room. The producer stood up. Did she just say that? Michael didn't flinch. He leaned back with a thoughtful nod. Well, I hope I'm asking questions our viewers care about. And I hope they care about things that matter, Meghan retorted, folding her arms. Like mental health, education, and equity. Not whether or not my marriage is tabloid-worthy. Michael's smile was tight, controlled. So let's dig into that then, if you're open to it. The battle lines were now drawn, civil but unmistakably sharp. The temperature on set had shifted, and it wasn't done rising yet. The air inside the Good Morning America studio was noticeably heavier now. Michael Strahan shifted in his seat, the practiced polish of a seasoned broadcaster still on his face. But in his eyes, there was something colder. Not anger, not annoyance. Something far more dangerous for live TV, resolve. Meghan's posture had changed too. She no longer leaned forward or flashed that carefully curated public grin. Now she sat back, relaxed, almost smug. Her fingers toyed with the corner of a cue card on the side table like she owned the set. Michael cleared his throat, his voice calm. Meghan, I appreciate your candid thoughts on the media, but let's pivot slightly. Something a lot of viewers are curious about. Your transition from acting into royal life. Do you feel Hollywood prepared you for Buckingham Palace? For a moment, Meghan blinked, like she wasn't expecting it to come this soon. Then the smile returned, but colder this time. You mean, do I think playing a paralegal on Suits helped me sit next to the Queen? No, Michael, I wouldn't say it was preparation. That's a rather silly comparison, don't you think? Michael held her gaze. Not at all. Plenty of people make career leaps, but I imagine there must have been some parallels, like managing public scrutiny or balancing personal expression with public duty. I think what you're really asking, Meghan said, eyes narrowing slightly, is if I was ever worthy of the role. No, Michael replied smoothly. I'm asking if your previous experiences helped or hurt the transition, and whether you feel you were prepared. Meghan chuckled, a sharp, joyless sound. Prepared for a family that thought I was a prop in their historical drama? Let's just say no script could have prepped me for that. Behind the cameras, producers began shifting. The director mouthed, let it play. They knew what this was becoming. Viral gold. Michael turned a page in his notes. Let's talk about the decision to step back from royal duties. There's been speculation that tensions weren't just with the press, but within the palace itself. Meghan's expression shifted again. Oh, here we go, she muttered under her breath. Michael raised a brow but continued. There were reports, unconfirmed of course, that some of those tensions involved your own behavior. That perhaps some people felt you weren't interested in adapting to the institution. A pause, a sharp inhale from someone off camera. Meghan didn't blink. And I suppose you're quoting those mysterious palace insiders, right? The ones who never show their faces but always have plenty to say. Michael didn't respond. The silence was his move now. Meghan's voice dropped. Look, I know it's easy to paint me as the difficult one. People love that narrative, especially when it involves a woman, especially a woman of color. But let me ask you something, Michael. Would you be asking these same questions if your guest were a man who had married into the monarchy? Michael's face remained perfectly still. I ask every guest the questions the public wants answers to. That's my job. And yet, Meghan said with a condescending smile, you keep circling the same implication. That somehow I caused my own problems. Michael flipped his cards slowly. Is that not a possibility? Meghan's smirk faded. I think we both know what kind of interview this really is, she said, her tone now icy. You're not here to learn about me. You're here to chip away at me, politely, of course, with a smile. But a chisel is still a chisel. Michael nodded slightly. I respect your point of view, but let me ask one more question. Just one. Meghan's arms crossed. Go on. Your relationship with Prince Harry, Michael began, choosing his words with surgical precision. Some tabloids have reported recent tension, separate travels, public disagreements. Care to comment? Meghan laughed aloud this time. I'd prefer not to entertain tabloid trash, Michael. If your questions are going to be based on supermarket headlines, perhaps you should be the one playing a paralegal. That one hit. A few staffers behind the scenes winced. Michael blinked once, and then he smiled. It wasn't his TV smile. It was the kind of smile that said, now you've shown the world who you really are. I ask about your marriage because your audience, the people who supported you, who rallied for you, are wondering if everything's okay. And if you don't want to answer, that's your right. But insulting the question doesn't make it go away. Meghan adjusted in her seat, suddenly less comfortable. You know, she said, voice lower now, it's funny how people like to pretend they're being respectful while slipping in subtle digs. You've got it down to an art form, Michael. And you've perfected the art of avoiding accountability, he replied, still calm. I am. Silence. The director held the cut signal, his hand frozen. Michael turned once more to his notes. Let's talk about your production company. Are you planning to focus more on documentaries or scripted content? But Meghan didn't answer. She sat there, arms folded, eyes locked on him like a chess player who just realized she's 5 moves away from checkmate. Michael let the silence stretch. Meghan, he prompted gently. She blinked once and the mask slipped ever so slightly. I think, she said slowly, we should wrap this up. Michael nodded, if that's your choice. But everyone in the studio could feel it. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. She thought she could control the conversation. But the room shifted, the charm cracked. And now, with her composure slipping and Strahan not backing down, the tension reached a boiling point. What happened next had producers scrambling and viewers speechless. There was a dense, charged quiet in the Good Morning America studio as Meghan Markle crossed her legs and angled her body slightly away from Michael Strahan. It was subtle, but the signal was unmistakable. The gloves were off. Michael sat perfectly still, the cue cards now idle in his hand. He didn't need them anymore. Before we close, he said calmly, there's one more thing the audience has been buzzing about. Your recent public comments about the monarchy, especially calling it, quote, a dusty institution built on outdated ideals. Meghan tilted her head, eyes narrowing slightly. Is that really how you want to end this, Michael? You said it, he replied, unflinching. I'm asking if you still stand by it. I said what needed to be said, she replied coolly. Not everyone has the courage to speak out when something is wrong. But some would argue, Michael leaned in slightly, that you walked into an ancient system with your own expectations and got upset when it didn't bend to you. Her expression hardened. I walked into that system as a wife, a mother, a humanitarian, Meghan said, her voice tightening. Not as someone looking to stage a coup, But when I saw what it did to my husband, to my mental health, I chose peace. And the book deal? Michael asked without blinking. The docuseries, the Spotify contract, were those about peace too? It was the question everyone had danced around, and now it was out, hanging in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Meghan sat back. Her silence spoke louder than any words could. Look, she said at last, the veneer of control thinning. I'm not here to justify my existence or my choices. I have a platform. I use it. Isn't that what you people always say? Use your voice? Absolutely, Michael said. But when that voice comes with millions of dollars and global exposure, it also comes with scrutiny. You don't get to opt out of that. And who decided you get to lecture me about scrutiny? She snapped. Michael leaned back in his chair, folding his hands. I'm not lecturing, I'm interviewing. Or at least I was. The producers behind the scenes were frozen. No commercial break, no cut. This was too good to interrupt. Meghan's jaw clenched. You've been towing the line this entire time, Michael. Pretending to be fair while dragging up every hit piece written about me. I didn't write those pieces, he said, but I read them, just like your audience does. And now you're their mouthpiece? No, he said simply, but I'm not yours either. The silence that followed was volcanic. Meghan broke it with a sharp inhale. You know what I think? I think you had your narrative planned the moment I walked in. You wanted the viral clip, the soundbite. You don't care about my work or my truth. This was a setup. Michael raised his brows. And yet you walked into it. Her eyes flashed. Because I believed this would be different. I thought you would be different. He shrugged. Maybe you didn't do your homework. That was it. Meghan shifted in her seat, pulling her blazer tight across her chest as if shielding herself from the air itself. I think we're done here, she said through her teeth. But Michael wasn't finished. One last thing, he said, holding up a final card. You said recently in a speech that the truth has no expiration date. Is that still your belief? Meghan didn't look at him. Play your clip, Michael. Get your moment. He didn't. He just stared at her, waiting. She stood. Without another word, she walked off camera, heels clicking like a metronome counting down the end of a very public unraveling. Michael remained in his chair, exhaling only when the sound of the backstage door clicking shut echoed faintly across the studio. The room remained still. No one spoke, until the floor director whispered, We're out in 3, 2, 1. The screen faded to commercial. The studio was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop beneath the soft hum of cameras. Michael Strahan, ever the seasoned host, sat back in his chair, cool as ice, while Meghan Markle leaned forward, visibly rattled, her perfectly composed image unraveling thread by thread. Let's be honest, Meghan said with a clipped tone, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. There's only so much anyone can take of this interrogation. Michael didn't blink. You're free to answer, or not answer, any question, Meghan. But remember, this is live television, and you're the one who agreed to be here. Meghan let out a dry, incredulous laugh. Oh, please, don't act like this wasn't a trap. You invited me here under the guise of promoting my work, then spent 20 minutes fishing for headlines about my husband and my past. Michael calmly clasped his hands. I asked about your career, your choices, your public journey. You're one of the most talked about women in the world, Meghan. I'd be doing the audience a disservice if I didn't ask what they're already wondering. She shot him a glare, her words now sharper. No, you'd be doing yourself a disservice by pretending you're Barbara Walters. Gasps rippled across the control room. The crew froze behind the cameras. The comparison wasn't just biting, it was intended to sting. Michael's jaw tightened. He leaned in slightly, but his voice remained smooth. I don't pretend to be anyone, Meghan. I'm Michael Strahan, and I've earned my seat, just like you've earned yours. But Meghan was spiraling. Her tone grew condescending. Let's be real. If my name was still just Meghan Markle, the actress from Suits, you wouldn't even have me on this show. You'd be interviewing another quarterback. Michael smiled, genuinely this time. Not out of amusement, but out of realization. You might be right, but here's the difference. I'd still treat them with respect. That hit differently. Meghan blinked, her mouth parted as if to respond, but nothing came. Instead, she stood up, slow and dramatic, like a courtroom drama character preparing her final monologue. "You know what?" she said, placing her microphone down on the side table. "I don't have to stay here and endure this kind of amateur journalism dressed up as morning fluff." Michael didn't move. "You're free to leave, but walking out doesn't make your answers disappear." She adjusted the ivory blazer over her beige trousers, chin lifted high, and staying doesn't make your questions any less shallow. With that, she turned to leave. The studio doors didn't creak, but they might as well have slammed shut with the weight of what had just happened. Cameras kept rolling. Michael remained seated, composed, then looked directly into the camera. "Well," he said, pausing, "live TV, folks. Sometimes you get inspiration. Sometimes you get confrontation. And sometimes you just get someone walking out because they didn't like the questions." He smiled again, but this time it was seasoned steel behind that grin. "We'll be right back." The screen faded to commercial, but the clip would not. By noon, it had gone viral. So, what do you think? Was Michael out of line for asking those questions? Or was Meghan too defensive for her own good? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more real, raw, and dramatic celebrity interviews gone wrong, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Eco Stories. Because sometimes the most shocking moments are the ones that were never in the script.